Hey everyone, Yunfei here. Welcome to my channel where we break down the Chinese language bit by bit. Now, I know what you're thinking. Chinese is tough. All those characters, the tones, it can be confusing. Learning Chinese can be tricky. But today, we're going to fix the top 5 mistakes that learners often make. We'll go over each mistake step by step and get you speaking better. So grab your notebooks, your favorite drink, and let's get started. Okay, let's talk about tones. You might think tones are just for music, but in languages like Chinese, they play a crucial role in communication. Imagine if every word you said had a specific melody, and changing that melody could completely alter the meaning of the word. That's exactly how tones work in Chinese. In Chinese, tones are super important. They are not just an added feature, they are integral to the language. Each syllable in Chinese can be pronounced with different tones, and each tone gives the syllable a different meaning. There are 4 main tones in Mandarin Chinese, and mastering them is key to being understood. It's like the difference between saying I love you in a sweet way and saying I love you in a sarcastic way. The words are the same, but the tone changes the meaning entirely. In English, we use tone to convey emotion, but in Chinese, tone changes the actual meaning of the word. In Chinese, tones change the meaning of words. For example, the syllable ma can mean mother, hemp, horse, or scold, depending on the tone used. This makes it essential to learn and practice the correct tones from the very beginning. Saying ma with the wrong tone could change the meaning completely. Imagine trying to tell someone about your mother and accidentally calling her a horse. It's a common mistake for beginners, but with practice, you can avoid these misunderstandings. For example, ma means mother, but ma means horse. This is a classic example of how a small change in tone can lead to a big difference in meaning. It's both fascinating and challenging, but also quite fun once you get the hang of it. You don't want to call your mother-in-law a horse, right? It's a mistake that can lead to some pretty awkward situations. But don't worry, everyone makes these mistakes when they're learning. The important thing is to keep practicing and not get discouraged. Think of it like this. Each word has its own little tune. Just like in music, where each note has a specific pitch, each Chinese word has a specific tone. If you sing the wrong note in a song, it sounds off. Similarly, if you use the wrong tone in Chinese, the meaning of your word will be off. You have to sing the right tune, or the meaning changes. This might sound daunting at first, but with time and practice, it becomes second nature. Start by listening to native speakers and mimicking their tones. Pay attention to the rise and fall of their voices. Don't worry though, it takes practice, but you'll get there. Just like learning to play an instrument, mastering Chinese tones requires patience and persistence. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Start by really exaggerating the tones when you practice, like really go big. Over-exaggerating the tones can help you internalize them. Once you get comfortable with the exaggerated tones, you can start to tone it down to a more natural level. Listen to native speakers and try to copy them. Use resources like language learning apps, online videos, and language exchange partners. The more you expose yourself to the language, the better you'll become at recognizing and using the correct tones. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether it's from a teacher, a language partner, or a friend who speaks Chinese, getting feedback on your tones is invaluable. They can help you identify where you're going wrong and how to improve. Remember, everyone makes mistakes, especially with tones. It's a normal part of the learning process. The key is to learn from your mistakes and keep practicing. Over time, you'll find that your tones become more accurate and your confidence grows. Just keep practicing, and you'll be speaking Chinese better in no time. The journey of learning Chinese tones is challenging but rewarding. With dedication and consistent effort, you'll be able to communicate effectively and confidently in Chinese. Next up, we have measure words. These are essential in Chinese and can be a bit tricky at first, but don't worry, we'll break it down for you. This is where Chinese can be a little different. Unlike English, where we can simply say 3 books or 2 cars, Chinese requires a bit more specificity. You see, in English, we can just say 3 books. Easy, right? But in Chinese, it's not quite that simple. In Chinese, we don't just say 3 books. We need a measure word, sanbenshu, sanbenshu. The word ben is the measure word for books. Don't forget your measure words. They are crucial for clarity and understanding. It's like ordering 3 scoops of ice cream but forgetting the bowl. You need that bowl. Without it, your ice cream would be a mess. Think of measure words as a way to be specific about what you're talking about. They help to categorize and quantify objects in a way that makes sense. You wouldn't just say 3 water, right? That would be confusing and unclear. You'd say 3 bottles of water or 3 glasses of water. The measure word specifies the container, making it clear what you mean. It takes some getting used to, but there are some tricks to remembering them. Flashcards can be a great tool, and mnemonic devices can help too. Try grouping them with similar things. This can make it easier to remember which measure word goes with which type of object. For example, Ben is often used for flat objects like books, magazines, and notebooks. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes second nature. And hey, if you forget a measure word, it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, and it's all part of the learning process. Just try your best and keep practicing. The more you use them, the more natural they will feel. Remember, practice makes perfect. Immersing yourself in the language can also help. Read books, watch shows, and try to use measure words in your daily conversations. There are also many language apps and resources available that can assist you in mastering measure words. Use them to your advantage. Speaking with native speakers can provide valuable practice. They can correct you and offer tips on how to use measure words correctly. Keep a journal of new measure words you learn and review them regularly. This will reinforce your memory and help you retain the information. Learning measure words might seem daunting at first, but with consistent effort and practice, you'll get the hang of it. And remember, every step you take brings you closer to fluency. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Each measure word you master is a victory. Keep going and don't be afraid to measure up. Now let's talk about translation. I know it's tempting to just translate word for word from English, but trust me, that doesn't work well. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Don't try to translate word for word from English. Chinese sentences are built differently. For example, instead of I go to school every day, we say 我每天去学校, 我每天去学校. See how the word order is different? Chinese and English have totally different ways of making sentences. It's like comparing a hamburger to a plate of noodles. They're both good, but they're made differently. Instead of translating word for word, try to understand what the whole sentence means and then say it in Chinese. Okay, this next one is really important: cultural context. When learning a new language, especially one as rich and nuanced as Chinese, understanding the cultural context is crucial. It's not just about memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules, it's about immersing yourself in the traditions, values, and social norms that shape the way people communicate. Language isn't just about words, it's about understanding the culture. For instance, during Chinese festivals, you might notice how people greet each other with specific phrases and gestures that convey respect and goodwill. These cultural nuances are integral to effective communication. Remember, language is about culture. Chinese people are polite. Don't be too direct. In Chinese culture, being overly direct can be seen as rude or disrespectful. Instead, people often use more indirect language to convey their messages politely. For example, instead of saying I want this, try 我想要这个 or 我想要这个, which is more polite. This phrase translates to I would like this, which sounds much more courteous and considerate. Chinese culture values being polite and respectful, so it's important to be careful with your tone and words. During a family dinner, for instance, showing respect to elders by waiting for them to start eating first is a common practice. For example, instead of saying give me that, you would say, can you please pass me that? This small change in phrasing can make a big difference in how your request is received. It's like, you wouldn't go to someone's house and put your feet on the table, right? Similarly, when you're in a Chinese setting, it's important to observe and follow the local customs and etiquette. You'd try to be polite. Simple gestures like a slight bow or a firm handshake can go a long way in showing respect and building rapport. So when you're learning Chinese, don't just learn the words. Dive deeper into the cultural aspects that influence how those words are used in everyday interactions. Learn about Chinese culture and how people act. By doing so, you'll not only improve your language skills, but also gain a deeper appreciation for the rich cultural heritage that shapes the way people communicate in China. Last but not least, let's talk about Chinese characters. I know, they can look complicated, but trust me, they're not that scary. Chinese characters might seem hard, but don't worry too much. Learn a few characters at a time and go from there. It's like learning to ride a bike. You wouldn't expect to be a pro on your first try, right? Start by learning the basic strokes, like lines and curves. These are the parts that make up Chinese characters. Once you know them, you'll be able to recognize characters more easily. Don't try to memorize every single character. Focus on learning the most common characters. And remember, practice makes perfect. So there you have it, the top 5 mistakes to avoid when learning Chinese. Remember, learning a new language takes time, but it's worth it. Now you know the top mistakes, you can improve your Chinese. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more helpful tips. And hey, if you make a mistake, it's okay. Just keep practicing, because learning a new language is all about talking to new people and seeing the world in a new way. So go out there, make some mistakes, and have fun. Until next time, keep on learning.